All right, ready to dive into another career deep dive? Today we're tackling the world of ICT System Development. And wow, you've really handed us a ton of info on this one. Looks like you're ready to crack the code on this career path.
It's a good one to explore, that's for sure. The demand for ICT system developers is going through the roof, but there's a lot more to it than just knowing how to, code.
And that's exactly why we're here, right, to unpack it all. So let's start with the basics. When we say ICT System Developer, what are we actually talking about? What do they do? I mean, we hear these terms system developer all the time, but what's the real world breakdown?
Okay, well, think of any organization that lives and breathes technology these days, like a huge online store, a bank handling tons of transactions, or even a hospital using tech to manage everything. Behind all of that, there's this intricate web of software and systems that keeps everything running, and guess what? ICT system developers are the ones who design, build, and keep that digital world spinning.
So they're like the masterminds behind the scenes. Okay, I'm getting a better picture, but it still feels kind of abstract. Are we talking about someone glued to a keyboard all day, wrestling with lines of code?
Well, coding is a big part of it, for sure. But honestly, what makes this role super interesting is the mix of technical skills and, get this, people skills. One thing that really jumped out from the research you gave us was the importance of active listening. It actually said something like 57% of the job is about active listening.
Whoa, 57%. Seriously, that's a lot higher than you'd expect for something that seems so tech-focused. Why is listening so important for an ICT system developer?
Because at the end of the day, it's about solving problems for real people. Developers need to really get what those users need, the problems they're facing, what they're trying to achieve. Then they have to translate all of that into tech solutions that actually work. If you're not really listening, you could build an amazing system that totally misses the mark.
Makes sense. It's like building a bridge between what people need and what technology can do. It's not just about code, it's about the right code that actually solves the problem, right?
Exactly. And that's where being a good listener, really understanding the user or the business, makes all the difference. It's what separates the good from the truly great developers.
You need to speak tech and human. Interesting. And speaking of things that are connected, the research also mentioned system integration. Sounds important, but I'm not totally sure what that means in this context.
Yeah, it's a really important point. In our super interconnected world, software systems almost never exist in isolation. System integration is all about getting different systems, often built by different teams or with different technologies, to talk to each other and work together smoothly. That way, information flows between departments, things get automated, and the whole organization benefits.
It's like being a digital diplomat, building bridges between different tech languages. And I bet that takes a lot more than just technical know-how, right? You need serious communication skills and problem-solving skills for that.
You got it. And as you move up in the ICT world, those skills become even more crucial, especially as you reach those senior positions.
Perfect timing. Let's talk about the career path for an ICT system developer. The research you gave us maps out a pretty clear progression, starting as a junior developer and eventually climbing to that coveted lead developer role. So let's break it down. What does it look like to climb that ladder rung by rung?
A ladder's a good way to think about it. Each step has its own set of challenges and, of course, rewards.
And like any good climb, we've got to start with a solid base. So let's imagine ourselves as newbie junior ICT system developers. What's life like on that first rung?
It's like an apprenticeship in the tech world. You're working alongside those more seasoned developers, learning the ropes.
So it's about paying your dues, getting that hands-on experience, and showing what you can do.
Exactly. You're doing things like maintaining and troubleshooting existing systems, testing out new code releases, and slowly taking on more coding responsibility.
Hands-on learning, problem-solving, really getting to know how things work from the ground up. Can you give us an example of what a task might actually look like for a junior ICT system developer?
Sure. Let's say you're working at a startup that's building a brand new app. As a junior developer, you might be asked to write the code for a small feature, like maybe a user feedback form, or you could be in charge of testing new code for bugs. You'll be working closely with those senior developers, learning from them, and gradually taking on tougher tasks as you get more confident.
Learning by doing, that's great. Seeing how all that theory actually works in the real world. But I'm guessing it's not all smooth sailing. What are some of the challenges a junior developer might face early on?
I think for a lot of junior developers, it's that feeling of like imposter syndrome,
Oh, totally.
You look around and everyone seems like they know so much more than you. It's easy to doubt yourself.
You're drowning in code. Everyone else seems so confident.
Exactly. The important thing is to remember everyone starts somewhere. Making mistakes is part of the process.
It's all about learning and growing.
Right. Embrace those challenges. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Love that. But eventually, you start to find your feet. You get more confident, take on bigger things. Which brings us to the next step. Intermediate ICT System Developer. What changes at that level?
You're not just learning the ropes anymore. You're starting to steer the ship a bit. More responsibility, more complex projects.
So what does that actually look like day to day? Got an example for us?
Let's imagine a company's customer database is a mess, running slow, causing all sorts of problems. An intermediate developer might be the one who has to figure out what's wrong.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They'd analyze the database, find the bottlenecks, and then actually design and implement a solution. That might mean optimizing queries, recommending new hardware, maybe even restructuring the whole database.
It's like being a digital detective.
It is.
You need that tech knowledge, but also those problem-solving skills we talked about earlier. And I imagine communication is even more important now, especially when you have to explain complex technical stuff to people who aren't as tech-savvy.
100%. In fact, the research actually mentioned a funny example of this. One developer was saying they had to explain a tech issue to a colleague, and they ended up comparing it to a clogged pipe.
Okay, I like where this is going.
It sounds silly, but that analogy actually helped the colleague understand the problem and the solution.
Brilliant. It's about meeting people where they're at, right? Using language everyone can get. So important. But the journey doesn't stop there. You keep learning, keep leveling up, and eventually you reach that senior ICT system developer status. What does that look like?
No, you're not just solving problems. You're seeing them before they even happen.
Whoa, next level.
Right. Senior developers, they get how everything fits together, not just individual technologies, but the whole system.
So it's a bigger picture view.
Exactly. You're thinking ahead, designing solutions that are scalable, secure, and ready for whatever the future throws at them. Plus, you're mentoring those junior developers, sharing your knowledge.
It's technical expertise, strategic thinking, and leadership all rolled into one. Pretty impressive. But even at that level, things change so fast in the tech world. How does a senior developer keep up?
That's where lifelong learning comes in. The research really stressed this. It's all about continuous professional development, conferences, certifications, even just setting aside time to explore new tech. A good senior developer is always learning.
Always evolving, just like the tech itself. Makes sense. And speaking of moving up, there's one more rung on that ladder we need to talk about. Lead ICT System Developer. What sets this role apart?
If a senior developer is like an architect, then the lead developer is like the city planner.
Ooh, I like that.
They're not just designing a single building, they're envisioning the entire tech landscape of the organization.
So what does city planning look like for a lead ICT system developer? What are they actually responsible for?
They work directly with the top brass, making sure the tech aligns with the company's big picture goals. They're setting the tech strategy, developing long-term plans, evaluating and implementing new technologies. It's a big deal.
They need to speak both business and tech. That's a crucial link.
For sure. They're visionaries, strategists, mentors, all in one. That mix of tech skills, business smarts, and leadership, that's what makes them so valuable.
I bet those skills are in high demand. But let's be real, every job has its ups and downs. What are some of the maybe not so great things about being an ICT system developer?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that you constantly have to be learning and adapting. Technology changes so fast, what's hot today might be outdated tomorrow.
It's not for people who like things to stay the same, that's for sure.
Definitely not. And because of that, you might end up working long hours, especially when projects are on tight deadlines. It can be demanding. You need to be able to focus and solve problems, even when you're tired.
Sounds like you really need to love tech and get a kick out of problem solving to thrive in this field.
You got it. But if you're passionate about it, the rewards are huge. Speaking of which, let's talk about actually landing a job. You didn't hand us all this research for nothing, right? So how do you go from aspiring developer to actually getting hired?
The million-dollar question. The research mentioned a bachelor's degree in computer science is often the standard. But what about those who took a different path, who maybe don't have that traditional background?
That's where certifications come in. They're proof that you have practical skills. The materials you shared mentioned a few that are super valuable right now, like the CCNA for networking, the CISSP for cybersecurity, and all those AWS certs for cloud computing.
So it's about showing employers what you can do. But even with the right skills, finding a job can be tough. Any advice for standing out, especially in such a competitive field?
Tech can actually be a huge help in your job hunt. Remember, RoleCatcher, the platform we use to prep for these deep dives.
Of course, with all those cool AI tools.
Exactly. Their AI can look at job descriptions, figure out exactly what employers want, and then help you tweak your resume so it gets noticed. They even have AI-powered interview practice so you can get feedback on your answers and communication style.
It's like having a personal career coach, but powered by AI. That's amazing, especially for people who are new to the job market or trying to switch careers.
It's a game changer. And it shows how important it is to embrace new tech, not just in your work, but in your career too.
Always be learning, always be adapting.
Exactly. Because being an ICT system developer is about so much more than just code. It's about using tech to solve problems, to innovate, to shape the future.
Now that's inspiring. It's about making a real difference in a world that relies on technology more every day. So for our listener out there who's been on this deep dive with us, what's the one thing they should take away?
More than any specific technology or programming language, it's about cultivating that curiosity, that drive to solve problems, and that commitment to always keep learning. The world of ICT never sits still, so the best developers don't either.
So true. Be adaptable, be resourceful, and never stop learning. Great advice. And for our listener, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that passion for technology alive. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new and fascinating career. Until then, happy coding.